Hello friends, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about how to set up Spring Boot profiles for integration test using H2 database. If you're familiar with H2 database, we know that H2 database is a in-memory volatile database, and we often use the H2 database for integration testing. And we should also have a real database, whether it's a relational database or NoSQL database. When we do integration testing, we typically don't want to test on the real database. Instead, we want to test on the H2 database. You can set up Liquibase, things like that to manage your database, but typically we want to use H2 database for that. So how do we configure Spring Boot profile in order to use H2 database for integration testing? So let's do the step one. Step one is to create a Spring Boot project. So right now I have an empty project. I call it demo. I'm going to create a new module using Spring Initializer. Just going to call it backend. Word file for web application, and I want to use dev2 longbox Spring Web. Spring session reports, REST repository, the template engine security. We don't want security. We do want JDBC. We want H2 database and PostgreSQL database. And then create. Okay. We can first try build this backend project. So I'm going to first build and see if there are any problems. Should return 0. Compile and return 0 without any problem. Okay, so now we have a Spring module, and we call it backend module. And now we can set up our database. And next we can connect to our database. Okay, make this smaller. Okay. So if we go to under source and the main and the resource and the application property, and currently it's empty, and we can configure Spring to connect to database, and we can so I'm just going to copy it and paste. So the way we do this is by specifying the URL. So this is the URL for connecting to Postgre database, and also the username and the password. Very simple, just for demonstration purpose. And so the password is overly simplistic. Normally you want something much more complicated. Okay. So we can also connect to the database from the database interface. And so let's go data source. We want to pick PostgreSQL, localhost host, and we can provide user and the password. And we can test connect. we connect it and we apply and OK. So we can just check what tables we have here in PostgreSQL. So go to property, schemas, you want DBO. We don't need default database. Apply and OK. And let's expand DBO. No schema selected. Why no schema selected? We do want public schema. So there are 5 tables, and one of them is student. So there's student table here, and the other two. The other tables are Sprint sessions, and also Liquibase. But student is the table that we want to use for integration testing, and there are 3 entries in that table. So by supplying Sprint with the URL, database URL, and also the credential, Sprint now would be able to access the database. Okay, and we also want to instruct Hibernate that on starting Sprint, we don't want to recreate the table. For the DDL, we want to just validate. Okay, nothing more. We don't want to recreate anything. Okay, so that is configuring the default property file for PostgreSQL. Now we also have H2 database. So if you go to your POM file and you can search H2, you can see H2 is also configured here. However, we cannot actually configure H2 in the same property file. For example, if I were to just copy the configuration for H2 here, okay, you'll see that we have duplication here. So this is saying that you have already specified for Sprint the source URL, username, and the password. You cannot specify them again in the same property file. So what you can do here is to create another property or profile or the property file used for a different profile. So what you can do here is to create a new property file. Let's just call it application and use a hyphen, and after hyphen we want to specify the name of the profile. So for example, this is for testing profile and used for testing purpose, and we use the H2 database for integration testing. So we can call it test. So application hyphen test dot property. Okay, and what's after hyphen is the name of the profile. Okay. And here I can copy and paste the H2 database configuration here. Okay. Okay. And then since we have a student entity, I'm going to create a entity file. Okay, I guess I can put it here. Step 2, create. Well, step 2 was to configure the properties files and the test profile. Okay, and I guess we are at actually step 3, which is to create entity in the repositories. Okay. So we will have to make sure that the entities and repositories are created inside the same package. So I'm going to create another package here and I'm going to call it entity, and another package which I will call it repos. Okay, so let's see if I can generate the JPA entity from here. So can I just create a JPA entity from here, auto generation? Anyway, so since this is a very simple database table, I'm just going to manually create myself. Should not be very complicated. So I'm going to create a Java class, and I'm going to make sure the name is going to be the same as the table name. Call it student, and so this is an entity, and we want to specify the table because the name of the table has lowercase s. Okay, and we're gonna have to specify ID. So here the ID is big int, so we're going to use long, and private and it is a column, and the name of the column is ID, and also no voice false because it is a primary key, and also can we specify how okay, maybe it's ID. No. Either auto increment. So unique is true. For auto increment for ID entity. Okay, so so we can do generated value, and because it is auto generated value, and we can specify the strategy to be either auto or identity. So I'm just going to specify it as the identity, the generation type, strategy for generation type. And so another column is first name. So column name, first name, private string, first name. Here I'm using camel case, and then last name, which is going to be similar to first name. So here I'm just going to copy and paste last name and last name. Okay, and then I'm going to create a repository, corresponding repository for that. Should be an interface. I'm going to call it student repository. So that should extend from JPA repository. So the entity would be student. The ID of the table, the type is long. Okay. I'm going to compile, clean, and install and see if there are any problems. Now we can go from there if there are no problems with my settings. Looks promising. Okay, no problems, and then we can create a test for the repository. So let's just do that. So we can create a test. Okay. Okay, so this is our test. So what I'm going to do with this test, because this is an integration test, I can either fire up entire screen, or I think there's a JPA testing, a tag for JDBC test. I think it's JDBC test. And then I'm going to auto wire the repository. So auto wire student repository. So I'm gonna make this private. Okay, so this will be auto wired, and then I'm going to create a test, a very simple test. Void, going to call it test1 because this is just for demo purpose, and we want to assert equal so right now we actually want to use H2 database for testing, and in H2 database there should be also a schema for that. Okay, so I guess we can still do that demo. So first, let's see what database this test is going to run against. Okay? And so we're expecting 3, and we want to use repo to get all the records and also the size. Okay, and if you look at the database, you can query the database, I guess. Select, you can count everything from DBO, public, and student. So this will give us the number of records in the student table. So it's a 3, right? So if we run this test, where was the test? Report student test. If we run this test we're expecting this to be 3, right? So we're expecting this test to pass. Okay, so let's run this. So there's something wrong with the test. Being from the repository test. Why is that? Cannot be auto-wired. So this is a repository. I guess we will have to I guess for the testing purpose we may have to use sprint boot testing, which is to fire off entire sprint. So let's try this again. Oh, there we go. Okay, so we got that pass, right? So this is indicating that this test is actually using the PostgreSQL, not H2 database, because H2 database currently is empty, and there shouldn't be any H2. There shouldn't be a table named student, and there shouldn't be any records. So if the database used was H2, then we're expecting this to actually fail, right? Now, I guess the last step, step 4, is to specify the profile. Okay. Very simple in Sprint. The way we do this is to specify active profile, and here we're going to specify the name of the profile, which is a test. So remember, the name of the profile is going to be the text after the hyphen. In this example here, because test is after hyphen, so the name of the profile is test. Basically, what this annotation is saying is that when we execute this test, we want to use the test profile, which use this property file instead. Okay, so let's run this again. This time we are expecting a failure. Should fail. See, there we go. We failed. Let's see what the fail message is. Load context, and H2 doesn't have database. Basically, should be the entity manager. Schema validation missing table student. Okay, so because now we're using H2, and H2 currently is empty, and we haven't specified schema to create the database and populate the database. So that's why we're getting this failure. But it does say that now this test is trying to look up for H2 database for testing instead of using PostgreSQL for testing. Okay, I hope this video is helpful, and thanks very much for watching, and you have a nice day. Bye bye.